Oh gosh. Okay, so you saw what I did. You saw what I did the last 7 years. Was I picked apart every single detail of every single thing in the mainstream, what we were taught in college, to all the different conspiracy stuff. I picked apart everything right down to its atomic level, the subatomic level, down to all the theories and formulas and laws of motion, laws of biology, laws of everything. Okay, there's a spider on my wall. And so that's why I would go systematically, piece by piece. The last 7 years, I had things hanging all over my wall. I was studying history, anthropology, social constructs, sexuality, diseases, all the fears, every single bit of religion out there, spirituality, and then experiencing the environment when all of a sudden things started changing. Just all of a sudden. It wasn't like, it was just all of a sudden. Pandemic. Oh shit. Now we have therapies. Okay. Now we have all this crazy disease. And then we have the blame game. And then we have the starvation. And it was just crazy. And I even have 3 books. 2 books are out in circulation. My first book that was out, that was the Exposing the Lies, is in either $48 sold by somebody, or I'm selling it for like $9 for ebook. But you don't have to buy it. If you want to, fine. But I did not at all circulate anymore the evolution, because that really is more from, that really doesn't have to exist. I mean, it's out there, but it's not being resold, or it's not being sold through me. Maybe somebody else's, I don't know. But the book that's current right now is Another Arm of the Hydra. And that pretty much says eat all food and realize you have to release those demons. And you have to eat all food. You have to release those demons in the way that I have in my book. And you got to understand the world that you're living in. We are in a major scale down through climate change. Where you want to blame it, that's up to you. But I figured out that viruses are vital information resource under siege. And what is that? Basically, vital information resource under siege means something else, whether something else is under siege. What does under siege mean? That's where I was picking apart stuff when I was Googling what virus actually means. Because we know there's computer viruses and they have a whole string of code, which, okay, it could be an outside source, but it's still in the system. See, when you have a computer, okay, it's like this computer and you have different portals of information coming through and information leaving. And so it's still in your system. It's still in the environment of which you belong to. But how is it becoming influential? Because it has a string of code that knows how to hijack things. Okay? Well, you have viruses in your body. No matter what, you always have viruses in your body. I mean, what's a virus? Well, it's when it's more influential. You have microbes in your body, 69 trillion. And one or 2 or 5 or 10 becomes so influential that it starts hijacking and taking over things in your body. So what would catalyze that to happen? Well, we know we've had VACCINESs for so many years, but that's not the only thing that would catalyze rapid growth, because rapid growth needs energy attached to it. Okay, and then you have the thermodynamics of your body, and you're doing exercises or whatever, or you're eating food or not eating food, and people want to blame all their cancers and issues on food and air and water. But when you think about it, it's the seasons changing. It's the frequencies in the environment that catalyze rapid growth. And you can it's all rapid growth is relative to the frequencies in the body, your biochemical makeup, and then your practices in reaction to symptoms, to dis-ease, your reaction to your body releasing energy. And people stop their body from releasing energy, so they build up pressure because they have 69 trillion microbes in the body, and viruses is like one colony unit becoming more influential. And it's always coming from an outside source, because you're not spontaneous. You don't just magically spontaneously materialize viruses or microbes or viruses. You don't materialize spontaneously or materialize anything magically. Any viruses, parasites, protozoa, proteins, fungus, or bacteria, you do not materialize that just spontaneously. It is something that is just in your environment. You're always exposed to something, and you have defense systems. And so viruses is then a frequency. It's a frequency in the environment that woke up something in your body and made it more influential. That's all virus is. It's based on the frequencies in your environment. And some viruses that have their own code and their own name and offshoots and offspring then have their own frequency ranges. Okay, and so then the frequency ranges in the environment will wake up certain things in your body. Not that they were really asleep, they were just kind of like hanging out. It's like somebody coming in and tapping on your house and waking everybody up, but they're not tapping on the house over there. And so you have a frequency that's like targeting you, like somebody that doesn't like you, and they're targeting you, and so they're knocking on your door and going like, oh, you're crazy. And so, but they're leaving your neighbors alone, but they're messing with you. That's basically what a virus is that something's coming in and waking everyone up in your environment, in your house. So if you have like 10 people in your house and one person is knocking on your door, then that little energy, which is really a big energy, is then waking up everybody in your house, and everybody else is asleep until they wake up. Okay, because they're hearing the loud noises next door, and then all of a sudden here comes all the police coming through, and now the whole fucking neighborhood is awake, and now you have more than just a little virus here that's influential. Now it is spreading. It's gone viral. That's some fucking crazy. That is some, oh my God. It took me 7 years to figure this out. 7 fucking years to figure out that the frequencies are what is the virus. It's the frequencies. And you can't even say 5G, because why would you say 5G? It's not just 5G. There's so many other factors involved. Okay? And so, as I was saying, it's going to be pretty much too late for most people, because they're not going to fucking get it. They're afraid of food. They're afraid of everything. And so anyway, so I posted that video, that end of life video, because I was watching it. I've already watched end of life videos, palliative care videos, like on Netflix and stuff. I'm just like, geez. But right now, so many people at some point, and if not already, or there'll be a mass type of situation, they won't be able to have the luxury to be in hospice or to manage cancer or disease. They'll just die suddenly. And so I said that the video below is a privilege, which is the end of life video, is a privilege to a person to even be facing hospice or end of life situations. Some people don't get the luxury to be in hospice. They just die suddenly. And the reason is because, again, you have to now manage the ledger of your immune system. You have a ledger that is what you're owing, or you're in deficit, deficient, negative. You're in the negative. Or it shows that you're so overabundant and you're sitting on a pile of cash, but that pile of cash is now attracting parasites. What do I mean by parasites? People are like, oh gosh, this person has $1 billion and I want to write to them, or I want to go knock on the door, or I want to go and say, hey, can you give me some of your cash? I have this issue, that issue, whatever. Parasites. That's why you don't want to be famous, really, because you'll attract parasites. And that's why you don't want to be freaking rich, because you'll attract parasites, people who have nothing, who want something that you have. That's why I don't want anything. I want my knowledge. I want my relative equilibrium in my body. I want relative peace in my neighborhood. But I don't want to be like out there, like, what is it? Trying to be a savior or a famous person, or be something that people are going to want to have or destroy. I just want to fucking just do my thing, and give people the option to do their thing. But as soon as you hold on to so much cash, or as soon as you hold on to where you're so deficient, then you have to go find someone with all the cash, then you become imbalanced. You become a disease. Because like a big person attracts so many people, and that people orbit around a big person, like a famous person or a really big person. Or when someone is so deficient, they're looking for something to glom onto and attract and be attracted to, so then you feed off the energy, whether it's the money, it's the validation, it's whatever. It's all physics. And so viruses are just biodiversity. When you think about it, we all hold algorithms, but really viruses are biodiversity. How you manage the ledger of your immune system is your responsibility. And so when you think about viruses, I mean, it could be so many different things when you think about it, because everybody holds frequencies in their cells, and there's frequencies in the environment, which is a larger cell, and they all interact with each other. But we all are viruses to each other relative to how influential we are to somebody else. Okay, and so viruses are just biodiversity, because even the frequencies is part of biodiversity, because biodiversity is managing those frequencies. So viruses, vital information resource under siege, are just biodiversity. How you manage the ledger of your immune system is your responsibility. And so when there's a terahertz that has been linked to well, I'm not saying tetra has been linked to, but that's my speculation because there's no proof, right? But there is a new virus called some kind of bug virus, or yeah, what was it called? Fudge. Jesus, there's just too much. Let me see, what is it called? Oh yeah, it is called a brain swelling virus. It's called something. I think it's called a bug virus, but I don't even know because I deleted that art. Oh, here we go. Bugbear. It's a bugbear virus, brain swelling, bat virus, far deadlier than COVID, kills two, raising fears at 10 signs to know, and it's respiratory and it's brain swelling. So talking about Marburg and all the swelling in the vessels and people having blood vessels pop and all that. Okay, so the bugbear virus is basically a frequency. And then I was Googling like Hertz, because remember I said this is going to hurt a lot of people. Hertz, H-U-R-T, and then H-E-R-T-Z. And so Hertz, it's going to influence your proteins, your immune system. And so I said this is going to hurt many immunocompromised people. And then I'm looking at, like, megahertz and all the different hertzes out there, but we have megahertz on my computer. It's not going to hurt me. I mean, I guess if I was that immunocompromised and electromagnetic sensitive. But when you think about a mass amount of people being afflicted by some kind of hertz, it would probably be a terahertz. Okay? And so, okay, hold on. Crap. But I'm not saying that people's like microbes don't invade your body, but how influential of the frequencies is what determines how influential those microbes are. Okay? And so, what did I say about that? Okay. All right, I'll just read that down over there. We are in, okay. Okay, let me just read that. Okay, so I say click on the picture. This terahertz viral frequency plus fear of mRNA in food or GMO food equals starvation and cancer and death. And so oncology at the micro level, destroying cancer cells or live cells, is no different than climate change, global warming, by HARP and CERN and DEW, or some like cycle in the earth. Okay, maybe there's more sun rays or less. I don't know. People want to say it's a cycle for 6,000 years and and that's what's going on, and they're using that as an excuse to go do that. Okay, I get that side of it. But no matter what, the viral frequency, the terahertz, or anything that causes thermal radiation that causes warmth. Okay, so let me read that. What does terahertz do to your body? Terahertz. Shit, terahertz? Terahertz? Terahertz, okay. Tetra, whatever. Terahertz radiation can produce thermal effects and raise the temperature. THZ radiation with higher power and longer duration can provide the first thermal effects to affect the cells of the animal, and then it is possible to destroy cancer cells by using the thermal effects of THZ radiation. Okay? So you have to look at that. If they're using that as far as destroying cancer cells, can you imagine a large amount of, it could be more than whatever the and I couldn't tell you what frequency, like which, I don't know the highest as far as mass level, but if a THC radiation can destroy cancer cells, imagine times that by who knows what, 100, 200, whatever. And there is frequencies in the environment, DEWs, that could be concentrated in one area causing these things. I mean, that's the thing that you got. And that, oh my God, this is crazy. And a lot of it I can't really prove because they're not going to tell you. You just got to put those two things together. Okay? I mean, that's the thing, because people are like, well, terahertz is not going to hurt somebody on a mass level, only on oncology in a very specific area. Yeah, but then you take it to, that's the micro level, but then take it to the macro level. And no one's going to say, well, we're going to use this kind of frequency level on a population during this time. No, the system is not going to tell their playbook. But Oncology at the micro level, destroying cancer cells or live cells, is no different than climate change, global warming by Harpin, CERN, and DEW. And I couldn't tell you the frequency level. I could not tell you the actual level. They tell you the name, and they're telling you we're going to have the bugbear virus. We had the COVID-19. That's a frequency. I couldn't tell you exactly the numbers and the algorithms, okay, because that's all private, patented, and you're not going to ever fucking know. So whoever thought making you afraid of food and water was fucking strategic. And whoever thought of connecting and merging the mRNA from VAX, saying it's in your food supply, which could very well be, yeah, genius. They took down that video. Most people don't stand a chance. This is some high-level psychological operations. Wow, even people in my J world fall for this. Shit. I can't help but laugh, right? Because at this point, it's like Henny Penny. The sky is fucking falling. And it very well is, probably. And I've been telling you guys, but even people in the J world don't fucking get it because they're so afraid of everything. Still caught up in the fear. And I hope you survive, but many of you are not going to. Many of you are so at a deficit. So at a deficit that the only thing you can do is just blame because you can't do anything. No one around you can support you doing what you could be doing, which is eating food. And so they're going to let you pass away and be in your fear because they don't have what it takes to help you do something for yourself. Some of you are going to end up like my friend who died. It's going to fucking suck to watch. Some of you are right there at that moment. It's going to take another frequency to take you out. And that is a reality for a lot of people, even in my J world, okay? And so many of you are still caught up in the fear. And I've been telling you guys this for so many fucking years. I hope you survive, but you have a lot of fear to shed and to shit out. All right? And so listed by the WHO as a priority pathogen with pandemic potential, it can rapidly attack the respiratory and central nervous system, the bugbear virus. The bug, which inspired by the blockbuster film Contagion about a global pandemic, attacks the brain, causing it to swell, and has a fatality rate up to 75%. Okay? And I had a little hive this morning, but that was it. I had a bunch of spaghetti yesterday, and that's all I've really been eating is spaghetti the last couple days, and cheese. I'm not even, I would boil some chicken and put it with some cabbage and a little bit of the sauce, some vinegar and sesame oil with a few spices, but that's pretty much it. I haven't been craving like any pork chops or any steak or any massive amounts of cream. I feel like I'm actually doing okay. And I finally made up for the deficit in my body, especially this last summer, having that much milk and cream and ice cream. Oh my God. And releasing those demons. And those hives came up. Major hives came up, but now this last couple of days I've been feeling energetic. Yes. Oh my God, energetic. And then, I would sleep and I would eat, but I'd be up early in the morning, early. And so all the energy that is surging through me that has been catalyzed by the frequencies has allowed me to channel through my immune system, my alimentary canal. So I'm releasing demons, and I'm blowing my knees and coughing and sneezing, and I'm also eating and sleeping. Okay? And so that's how now I'm going to react to these frequencies. It's not going to be too much of the pain. I don't have any pain even in my armpits. Nothing's leaking out of my armpits. I blow my nose, definitely. And I hawk up loogies, and sometimes a little bit of color, but that's pretty much it. All right? But I'm just like, holy shit. And so I just narrowed everything down. Are you the ultimate survivor? And so I'm going to read this stuff now. Jeez. And so viruses are just biodiversity. How you manage your ledger of your immune system is your responsibility. Some of you are so overdrawn. And what do I mean by overdrawn? You're drawn in. You're in deficit. You've lost collagen. You've lost weight. You've lost body mass. You've lost fat. You've lost muscle. You've lost even brain power. You've lost even any sense of logic of what is an emergency and what is not. You have so much fear inside of you. Okay? And so some of you are so overdrawn, or you're so overabundant. You have gained so much weight, and it is changing your appearance. I'm seeing people that I used to go to high school with, and they were relatively balanced. They look like normal, comparative to what the mainstream media has put out there. Not too much collagen and not too little, not too much. They were just relatively balanced. And now the last 3 years have added so much extra collagen, extra weight. And I don't even say they look like good or bad. They look like they're going through an immunological energy conversion. It has changed the shape of their face, changed the shape of their body. And so some of you are so overdrawn or so overabundant, attracting parasites, doing damage to you, trying to get to their piece of the pie, trying to get their piece of the pie. And so, yeah, when you have so much to you, okay, then, yeah, you're attracting and replicating parasites. And that doesn't mean that you attack everything in your body and taking the ivermectins. No, it means that you have to release some of those excessive colony forming units, not attack it, but you actually have to open up your immune system, pull that crap out, and cough and sneeze and blow your nose. Parasite means that it's excessive microbes that you're supposed to have, but they've become too numerous because of a frequency in the environment woke them up and made them replicate. It was like somebody outside knocking on your door, but not on your neighbor's doors, and they woke everybody up in your house. That's basically what it is. It's a targeted frequency that woke up certain microbes in your body that react to certain frequencies. Okay? And then what happens? Then they become numerous. And that's what cancer is. So many juvenile cells that are allowed to coagulate and allowed to congregate in one specific area with remote locations to make sure that if that little entity dies, that there is other remote locations that can metastasize when the time is right. Okay? And so I'm like, wow, laugh out loud. Wow, everyone has been so duped. I mean, everyone. And I was too until today. Not me. But I guess at this point, it doesn't matter at this point. I had 7 years of really engaging myself in my own information. Some of you have barely even scratched that surface. Your resistance was your own undoing. The distractions and everything else was your own undoing. Now more than ever, you have to deal with your symptoms so differently, and you can't be afraid of food. Okay? And so when you think about those that are afraid of like that video that people put out there, like, oh my God, and you know it came from someone who was religious and they're all about God and the Bible and okay and whatever. And then they're saying, oh gosh, you have to eat now only organic, not synthetic. And oh wait, there is mRNA in the food. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? As like you're in fear of that. And even if that is true, it's not going to fucking kill you. Everything is FDA approved, even in the therapies. Okay, you have an immune system that will process what it needs and release the rest. And who's for you to say what is poison and what is not? If it's FDA approved, it's not up to people like, okay, well, there's like 10 particles right here. I'm going to say this particle is poison, but this isn't. Who are you to fucking determine that? You have an immune system that will distribute and separate out what it needs and what it doesn't need. It's not up to you to do that. But people think they know how to do that. They shouldn't. They don't know how to do that, but whatever. And so that video was like, oh God, there's mRNA in the food. And now you got to have organic food. But then they're like, oh, but now you have the air. And now you have all the different climate stuff. And so you're still getting nanotechnology. I mean, it was so fear-inducing that anyone who watches that is so susceptible to that type of fear will then starve themselves. And when you're posting that video, I posted it because I wanted to show you, because you're going to see it anyways. When you go through Facebook Reels and someone's posted something like that, you're going to watch it. It was already in someone on my Facebook who posted that. Okay, it's in the J world. And okay, whatever. And somebody else already saw that. Somebody else already saw that. So it's already gone viral and global and all that. So then I'm going to post it too. And I'm going to give you my side of it and say this is a fucking fear campaign. And the aim and the intent is not only put fear of food, but also to starve you while these frequencies are going kind of crazy and causing more energy than you can manage. And then you're also starving yourself, only eating organic bullshit that has absolutely no major nutritional benefit. And then on top of that, you resisting your symptoms has caused the body to not know how to process food correctly. So then you're anorexic by starving, and you're bulimic when you think about it, because your ass is throwing up food. And maybe some of you might be throwing up anyways. And so then when you realize that's how I'm going to characterize people who eat food and they're aging out, or they have cancer disease and chronic illness and autoimmune disorders, and they're so skinny or so obese. And so, yeah, your ass is throwing up food. It's like it's bulimic. So even though it's processing it a little bit, it doesn't mean that you're processing it to get the maximum amount of nutritional benefit. And that's the aging process. Now go look at hospice. Go look at all the nursing homes and the elderly. They're eating food, but it ain't doing shit for them. They're still living off of reserves. They're still living off of their their bones, all of their 12 different systems. They're still, and that's why they're deteriorating. Because the body is cannibalizing itself because that food is just going in one ear and out the other. That food is going through the mouth and out the anus, just like it's just going through a slide. And all the doors of breaking it down and distributing it to the right places have all closed up. And so all you are is just then a garbage disposal. That's exactly what the elderly, the immunocompromised, and everyone that doesn't understand symptoms and food and is so afraid of food, they are basically garbage disposals. You just put the food, the big amounts of food inside the garbage disposal, and you turn it on, and it goes through all the pipes, and it goes out the other end, and nobody gets any benefit from it. That's why people are in hospice, dying suddenly. That's why they are breaking down, and bones are breaking. Collagen is now turning into gelatin, and people are a fucking mess. And it was planned for such a long time. So now I get it. Now I fucking get it. That's why I now I'm like, wow. And I'm not even doing this for all of you because most of you will not fucking get this. You'll still be like, yeah, whatever, and do your thing and be like, I have Christ, I have Jesus, I have this, I have that. And still go on your merry way and be looking at the hurricanes coming through your town, and you'll be washed away. Literally waterfalled away. Because that's what's going on. They are melting the ice caps. The climate is going to raise the waters, and it'll be like the days of Noah. And yes, and then one day when everyone is all washed away and they want the kind of people they want on this planet who survive all this, then they will start doing the ice age, the slow ice age. And then the waters will recede, the land will come back, they'll put the animals back there, they'll have the smart cities, and biodiversity will come back. And that's what's going on. So you're right now in the middle of the days of Noah, you're starving, and you're going to be washed away by little hurricanes and everything else. You'll be in hospice, starving, losing everyone in your family. Your kids will be on that same track. Oh, wow. It is so fucking elaborate. But I gotta hand it to them. It's so fucking genius. Holy shit. And so, and so I said, wow, everyone has been duped. I mean, everyone. And even I at some point was, but not me anymore. But I guess it doesn't matter. At this point, I had 7 years of really engaging myself in my own information. Some of you have barely even scratched the surface. Your resistance was your own undoing. The distractions, everything else was your own undoing. Now more than ever, you have to deal with your symptoms so differently, and you can't be afraid of any kind of fucking food, no matter if they say it's mRNA or GMO or whatever. You can't be fucking afraid. And if you're passing out videos telling everybody to be afraid of food, you're part of the fucking problem. It's like I'm talking to a bunch of anorexic, bulimic people. I'm probably talking to a bunch of brick walls. But you can't tell people. They have to be the one to tell themselves. Anorexia is when you starve yourself. Bulimia is when you throw up food that is under process on both ends. And so when you don't manage your immunity or your immune system correctly, you're not getting the maximum nutritional benefit. Look at the nursing homes. Look at people falling apart, breaking bones, aging out, having all the diagnosable conditions on their holistic remedies. You're either starving yourself or your body is throwing it up without taking in the benefit. That's why the elderly that's why the elderly who are eating are not getting the benefit, because their body is just throwing it out. Your ass has thrown up food, it should be processing, and you don't even know it. All right? And then this is when I was responding to that video that someone put out there. I'm like, oh my God, are you serious? You're putting this out there for people to be all afraid? All right, here's the thing. You've got to choose which word you want to use. You're either going to say everything is organic or everything's synthetic. But once you use organic and synthetic in one sentence, and you are saying you should be eating synthetic or you should be eating organic, you have just started a war. Right there, words develop worlds and wars. And using the word organic and synthetic in the same paragraph, and you are advocating one or the other or demonizing one or the other, you just started a fucking war. The world is either organic and you're just playing with all the different possibilities, or the world is synthetic and you're just playing with all the different possibilities. Those two words cannot reside together, because then you're causing a fucking war. Evolution is mRNA. That is the very nature of uracil. And that's part of one of the DNA structures. I think is it thymine or is it adenine? I forget, or guanine. One of those. Okay? But uracil is the ability to evolve. It allows for mutations that don't have to be bad. It means that it adds more of the strength or some other reinforcement. Okay? And so you want to be able to evolve to your environment. And so mRNA is the very nature of uracil. It is evolution. It is change. Change into what? Well, look at me. I'm not growing another head. I'm not growing, anything crazy. My body does fluctuate. Yes, my hair is changing. Okay? But I'm not going to blame it on a V. I'm not going to blame it on, it's just that's just how you have to evolve to your environment. All right? And so change into what? Look at me. I breathe in everybody's stuff and I'm taking in all the messenger RNA in the food supply, if that's in fact what's going on, right? And then someone's like, oh God, now they want to get rid of all the naturally born people. That was in that video too. I'm just like, oh my fucking God, this is crazy. And so there are a million ways to have a baby. And so, in the Scientology, they want the silent births, right? But no, you don't want silent births because you have to release the energy of the trauma of being born. And when you're suppressing that, in the Scientology world, that's like, oh my God, you're suppressing that kind of energy. But then what do they do? Is save it up to then channel into acting or something else. Okay? And so there's a million ways to have a baby. It could be using a mother as a broad mare, and then she dies anyways because, unless she wants to go through the process of bringing herself back again. But if they don't want to hurt any more people, then we can take all the different DNA, put it in a synthetic type of womb, grow it in a synthetic type of womb, in a uterus womb type of thing, and then then it's born. Okay, it isn't anything. It has to be taught stuff. Then you have the state sanctioned cuddlers that go and cuddle the baby and do whatever and give it all. It's the love and the connectivity. And then there's people out there who've been trained to bring in someone who is relatively peaceful and productive and geared towards something specific. And they go through whatever training based upon what the needs are for that society. And then there's no trauma. There's no intolerance, especially with my world when you're releasing demons and you're taking the DNA from the best specimens out there that don't have too much trauma. And if there is, well, then they will quell it very quickly if there are symptoms. And that's when people who have been bioengineered, no different than your family who have bioengineered into throwing steel or working in an office or working in science or working, in the military, you've been bioengineered. Every single one of you have been bioengineered, but it was at the expense of your parents. Now the system's like, okay, we want to bioengineer people, which you've already been doing anyways, at the expense of the machines, and no one is sacrificed in the process. And then you have the choice when you're finally conscious and can make choices. You can stay alive or you can die with everybody else who dies from deficiencies. And so there's a million ways to have a baby. There's a million ways to make a baby. Lab, nature, both still reside in the lab, both still reside in nature. Why do people continuously want to declare war on each other? When somebody else declares war on you because they told you something is different and told you should be afraid, you walk away from that fucking war. But I'm going to face it and I'm going to give you my side of it and you fucking make your decision. I'm not going to try to keep that information away from you. But I'm going to tell you my side of it. You'll have the option to see their side of it. And if you choose to believe in the fear and the starvation, then that's your fucking choice. But you saw my side of it and now you're choosing. And if you choose to be all afraid of food and only eat organic in your little fucking garden and then go look at a hurricane coming to you and not do anything because you want to resist and then you want to go and pound whatever it is you want to pound, then that's your choice to be washed away, waterfalled away, flooded away. And I told you, that's why those models that I showed you of the climate change, of where the states are going to have the most climate change. And so since I'm like in Ohio, it's less effective climate change. We're going to have climate change, yes, but the bottom 50 or 45 of that list of who would be most affected is where you got to realize maybe you should get out of those areas. If you're like in New Orleans, Florida, Louisiana, probably even South Texas, Galveston, anywhere on the coasts, those are indicators. Those are indicators no different than all your symptoms that you have to feed and release and all that and all the feelings of disease. Okay? And so if people can't even see that, if they can't even move themselves from out of harm's way, you really think they're going to understand this information? No. There's so many people that are going to be sacrificed in the South, on the coast. Oh my God. And people are moving to the fucking coast. Are you serious? In this world, they're telling you climate change, 90 meters, 10 meters, 20 meters, 30 meters, 50 meters. Part of the islands around New York are going to be underwater. Obviously, the coasts are going to be underwater. Florida, basically underwater. Louisiana is going to be fucking gone underwater. Okay? If you can't even see that, then you're not going to get my information. What are you doing? Well, okay, you're living out your life. And I get it. We thank you for your service. But now those that are watching this, that are not in those areas, you're going to have to prepare to really deal with some death. And the girl that passed away, she lives out in Key West. Not that she died from Key West stuff, but I'm sure all the hurricanes and everything else going on accelerated the atmosphere, and she was already dealing with some disease, and it accelerated her disease, and it made it more aggressive. No different than that Atlantic hurricane. Hurricane Lee is going to make whatever people's disease up there more aggressive, and potentially even die suddenly. And so I said, wow. Oh, here we go. It said, you walk away from the war. This is why I say religion is what was used to destroy those who believed in all the fear stories. Wow, be careful following the fear campaigns. And this video, that video, which is gone now, is the epitome of fear campaigns. I hope you all survive this great reset. Listen to the video, make your own choices. Remember, in my world, you don't have to die. But if you choose to resist your own evolution, this video will be your own personal self-fulfilling prophecy. And so the video I was referring to was taken off of Facebook. Now you see why Facebook censors you, okay? Bunch of little freaking henny penny running around with their heads cut off. And the reason why they are changing the derivation of the food supply from the world, you recognize, because you are changing how we eat our food and where we get it. Cruelty to animals, and then the best way to get the nutrition without damaging the earth is why they are doing what they are doing. And since most of you don't want to evolve and you can't handle change, this campaign is genius. The campaigns are genius. Intolerance does not discriminate. People who are intolerant can't handle change through their body, mind, and spirit, and their intolerance manifests in their politics, their religion, and their science. FDA approved does not put you in this type of situation of hospice, okay? Sugar, salt, and genetically modified does not put you in hospice. That person who is dying from whatever in hospice, this is from years and years of resisting your own immune system. Eventually, something's got to give when you don't allow your body to work the way it's supposed to. Many of you are sending your children to hospice one day. One day. Sending yourselves to hospice one day. Many of you will also die suddenly. You're starving. You're working yourself to death. You're resisting. You're in fear. And you're also addicted to how can you possibly fucking evolve in a very dynamic environment when you're addicted and you're resisting and you're starving? Okay? I mean, many people, even in the J world, will not survive what's coming and what's here because you can't handle the rays, R-A-Y-S, and the R-A-I-S-E in frequencies. Fucking genius. Okay, so we are literally in the days of Noah, literally. That's why I say pay attention to your geological surroundings. Listen to indicators. Strategize your survival. Remember the waterfalls? And I'm not saying you should do so many, but we are in the days of Noah, and the water is going to wash away the earth of the people who don't want to change. Flood to clean, freeze to bring back. When the earth is cleaned, a new ice age, then a new world. Survive the flood. And so when I was thinking about that, like, okay, the ice age. And you study history, right? Or you study the geological. I took a geology class in City College in San Francisco. And striking during the time period known as the Pleistocene epoch, this ice age started about 2.6 million years ago and lasted until roughly 11,000 years ago. Like all others, the most recent ice age brought a series of glacial advances and retreats. In fact, we are technically still in an ice age. Okay, so we're still in an ice age because there's still glaciers, but they are being melted by the climate change. And so when the seas rise, okay, so when you think about it, the earth is going on its axis around the sun, people don't believe it, but whatever, fine. But then when that's a cycle of the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere and the cycles of the seasons and the earth going around and little sun over here, more sun over here during certain times of the year, and where you are, on the hemisphere, southern or northern, then that's the balance of hot and cold. But when man comes in and adds more heat to the atmosphere and thus also melting the glaciers, causing a rise in the waters, that's how he's going to manipulate the environment to then wash away all the infidels. That's fucking genius. And then when there's enough devastation, enough restructuring, enough people washed away that are not evolutionary or tolerant, then gradually they'll stop applying the heat, and then the seasons will do what it does. The glaciers will start. The glaciers will start forming again. Because I've watched even in geology class the retreat of the different glaciers and how they have moved and made indentations in the earth and developed these long, huge canal type things. Like in Norway, the fjords, those are the glaciers going through and making its mark on the landscape. Even, the Grand Canyon, okay? And then they're showing you over time, like when I was in that class, he was showing us that over time, those glaciers were retreating. It showed where they were before, maybe like 100 years ago, they had so much ice here. And then when they added more heat or global warming or climate change, then they show the glaciers were retreating. It was like they were melting and then the seas were rising. Okay. And so then I said the video of that end of life story, she's lucky to even be facing this. Some of you will just die suddenly. And I just narrowed everything down. Are you the ultimate survivor? Because that's basically what it is are you the ultimate survivor? And so I read that. And so, yeah, the climate change models and articles in Forbes and future maps of the world is why I'm telling you, in my honest opinion, please pay attention to the Forbes future map of the world. Because you look at the Forbes future map and you see that I think that is the Mississippi. I think that is the Mississippi River. That is now opened up and it's gone all the way up to Michigan and no more Louisiana. That's gone. Okay. And then you look at Texas and you see where Houston is. And then there's a list of all the different cities that are going to be affected by climate change. And then you look at the Forbes future map of where Texas, and you see that Houston is right where all that water is. Okay. And you see, okay, there's a pattern here. There's some kind of correlation. There's a connection here. So pay attention to the Forbes American future map of the world. Because Forbes is from America. And then there's another hurricane coming through. The ensemble are hinting at possible problems coming into the Gulf of Mexico about the September 27th timeline. Low confidence at this time, but you know how shit works. If you're in the fucking Gulf, maybe start warning your family, maybe develop some kind of game plan if you're in the Gulf. I mean, I would hate to see you fucking drown. Some of you I like, and you're in New Orleans. Do you not see the writing on the wall? Louisiana is going to be underwater. It could be sooner than later. Do you not see your kids, your fucking grandkids? Do you care? That's what I'm saying. You can't stop what's coming, but you can get yourself out of harm's way. Do you get it? And so then it says America's shifting population by state. As citizens age and continuously face inflation, they are relocating, changing the country's landscape in the process. And so I said that's a little scary when climate change is going to take out a lot of the coastal states and everyone's moving to Florida. I mean, there's a green that is plus 1% and then the red is negative 1%. And so what's green? Well, there's Maine. Some of the southern states like North Carolina, or is that West Virginia? No, that's North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida, and all of Texas. And then you have, that may be New Mexico. That's on the left, or Colorado. No, I forget. That's okay. The Four Corners, but not so much the one on the right. I got to know my geography. But then Montana and Idaho and some Nevada, but they're moving to the south. A lot of them move to the south. Like, when you think about it, I wouldn't move anywhere on the coastlines in the south. Fuck no. Oh, hell no. But luckily, it's a decrease in Ohio, -2 in Ohio, which means we're going to have less people. That's great. Less competition. And even in Illinois, -7, but there might be taken out from the other maps. Let me see. What's part of Illinois? Part of Illinois and part of Indiana. They're going to have the Mississippi go right through them. Okay, so look at what they're telling you guys. And I said, flood to clean, freeze to bring back. Flood to clean, freeze to bring back. When the earth is cleaned, a new ice age, then a new world, survive the flood. Okay? Survive the fucking flood. And so I'm like, well, everyone is working on their short game, right? They're like, oh, I gotta be careful of this new freaking hurricane, blah, 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 and I gotta figure out a bug out bag and a whatever. I'm like, okay. They're worried about what? Going to school. They're worried about all this shit. And so I'm working on the long game. 2030 projections. Don't assume 2050 is a target time. Just pay attention to the weather and the indicator. And so New Orleans, Louisiana, Norfolk, Virginia, Galveston, Texas, Atlantic City, New Jersey, Charleston, South Carolina, Annapolis, Maryland, Long Island, New York, Virginia Beach, Virginia, San Francisco, California, Wilmington, North Carolina, Savannah, Georgia, Boston, Massachusetts, Houston, Texas will be underwater or under or flooding out or dealing with some shit. By 2030, Amsterdam, the Netherlands, okay, where all the drug addicts and prostitutes are. New Orleans, well, you know, New Orleans, the Big Easy, they're getting rid of so many people. Venice, Italy, Basra, Iraq, Kolkata, India, Bangkok, okay, where all that prostitution out there in Bangkok, Thailand. Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, well, wow. Savannah, USA, Khulna, Bangladesh, Georgetown, Guyana, Malé, Maldives, Dandong, China, Nagoya, Japan, Banjarmasin, Indonesia, Port Said, Egypt. Then Arizona, climate change to transform Arizona into a coastal state. Scientists have warned for years that the continuous burning of fossil fuels may send Earth's ice caps into near total meltdown someday, submerging many of the world's greatest cities. A bombshell new study in the Journal of Science Advances predict that if people keep adding carbon to the atmosphere at the rate that they're doing, then you're going to have, Arizona become a coastal city, which I already told you, and it's going to happen. And then more than 125,000 people pushed out of the coastal counties by sea level rises are likely to end up in Nevada, according to new research. And Nevada will eventually be underwater as we're getting all these immigrants and people going into Nevada. How climate change will affect New Mexico. In the coming decades, our changing climate is likely to decrease the flow of water in the Colorado, Rio Grande, and other rivers, threaten the health of livestock, increase the frequency and intensity of wildfires, and convert some rangelands into desert. Our climate is changing because Earth is warming. And so if you're in New Mexico, okay, any of the four corners, I would be really fucking careful. Why am I mentioning these certain states? Because people on my Facebook have those certain states that I do care about. Not that they really do anything about it, but I do care about, right? Which states will be hit hardest by climate change? Coastal states like Florida and South Carolina are most at risk of the impacts of climate change. Extreme heat, drought, inland flooding, wildfires, and coastal floodings are some of the most devastating effects of climate change. The effects of climate change can cost homeowners thousands of dollars in damage. And so that's why I said there's that whole safe home thing, but let me read this. Will Oklahoma survive climate change? In the coming decades, Oklahoma will become warmer on both floods and droughts may be more severe. So those are in Kansas, in all of those, Midwest, Arkansas and all that. And droughts may be more severe. Most of Oklahoma did not become warmer during the last 50 to 100 years, but soils have become drier and annual rainfall has increased and more rain arrives in heavy downpours, which means you'll be flooded out. So if it's so dry in Oklahoma and then you get all these heavy rainpours, then it'd be like Nevada. You washed away and be in so much mud, right? So there's that. And then so I said below, each state was ranked in each category from best to worst, and those figures were added together to create totals in which higher numbers equate to greater risk from climate change. This graph is probably very accurate for today, but the system might be looking in between now and 2030. What about between now and 2050? When the areas at the bottom start filling up with water or be decimated by wildfires, then you'll see who's next. If you're at the bottom 50, start looking at the top 50. Better be at the top than at the bottom. I don't even see Hawaii on this graph. And so that graph showed you, okay, it showed you what's at the top: Vermont, then New Hampshire, and then Massachusetts, Minnesota, Colorado, Wyoming, Rhode Island, Illinois. But remember, this is only for maybe till 2030. Then you got to look at 2050. Okay, Wyoming, Rhode Island, Illinois, Connecticut, Montana, North Dakota, then I'm Ohio. So I'm somewhere in the top, at least in the top 20. And then Nebraska, Virginia, but then the bottom, when you think about it, is like Florida. Okay, so if you're in Florida, that's right on the fucking wall. If you're in South Carolina, Louisiana, New Orleans, North Carolina, Mississippi, Georgia, Texas, Arkansas, Kentucky. Now you see the southern states are getting decimated. And who resides there? The elderly, the conservatives, and the drug addicts and the vacationers, the constant vacationers, right? And then you have, and the retirees, right? And so they have the Texas and Arkansas, Kentucky, then California. California, right out of the coastal state, and San Francisco is being decimated at some point. They're all the homeless, LA and San Francisco, homeless and drug addicts. They're turning into a complete wasteland. Okay? And so then Oklahoma, then Missouri, Washington. See, I'm telling you, look at these states where they are, where you are, and start planning accordingly. Look at the indicators. They are screaming at you. Screaming, fucking screaming. And so my property is not in a flood zone. I actually figured out that in order for me to buy, because my insurance agent would recommend me get flood insurance. When I was back in 2008, and they had the National Flood Insurance Program, and there was a whole run on selling everybody that's over there in it was Elk Grove. That's how I was selling mostly to people in Elk Grove, and they were on a floodplain. And they knew climate change was going to happen. They just didn't know when. So they recommend everybody, because they knew they'd be able to be there in the next 20 years if they can survive the mortgage crisis. But we were selling everybody flood insurance, like everybody flood insurance, because they know at some point. And I looked at my old address over there in Saratoga, 2878 Prospect Road, and oh my God, you have to get flood insurance over there. And I'm like, holy shit. So I Googled my address here, and I don't need to have your property's not in a flood zone. Thank God. Okay. And so if it is, then you buy flood insurance. And so, yeah, so I narrowed everything down. So now you have to eat all food. Stop buying into the fear campaigns. Who cares where your food comes from, as long as it's FDA approved and you're getting your fatty acid, amino acid, prohormones, and minerals. Just stay away from the people who are inducing fear. And they're all over. They're in your politics. They're in the religious people. The scientific dogmatic people who are like, oh, let's go twist the science and make everybody fearful. Okay, and then look at where you live. Look at your geological location. Look at the climate, and start doing things to figure out how you're going to strategize your survival. That's the only way you're going to be the ultimate survivor, is to strategize your survival. And so, I can't be any more emphatic about what's going on. You can't be afraid of food. You have to be in a safer place. And if you are in New Orleans or Florida, you got to look at, maybe you need to warn, at least if you can't move, grandma, then you got to tell your daughters and your sons, this is not the place to be in the next 5 years. And if you have grandkids, they have I don't want to even say they're going to die in the next 5 years, because that's mean. So if you plan to have them live for the next 20 years, you got to get them figured out how to get out of New Orleans, how to get out of Florida, how to get out of the southern states. You got to talk to your family in a very calm way and show them. As long as they're not political. If they're political and they're like, I'm not believing climate change, it's all a bunch of hooey, okay, you tried, and I guess you'll just wait and see what happens. And the system already planted all of those fears ever since 20, 30, 40 years ago. And the whole Democrat, Republican, and all the theories, and it has been embedded in people's religions, embedded in their politics, and it's so crazy. Some of you are not that entrenched in your belief systems that you can change. That's who I'm talking to. But if you really care about your grandkids and they are in the southern states, I would suggest you have a very heart-to-heart talk. I suggest you seriously sit everyone down and talk about what the fuck is going on. And if not, then yeah, I don't know. All right, bye.